Welcome to a new Data Director tutorial. Did you ever have problems showing data from complex fields like relations or field collections in the Pimcore grid view? Or did you ever want to display data from other objects in the object editing panel to simplify data maintenance workflow? With data query selectors, you can do this quite easily. In today's video, Jan explains how data query selectors work and where you can use them to enhance your Pimcore user experience. Data query selectors are one of the main reasons why the Data Director is such a powerful tool. Again, thank you, Jan, for sharing your knowledge and creating a new tutorial. Let's dive right in.
This time I'd like to speak about data query selectors. What are they good for, and why do they make the Data Director so powerful? At first, a data query selector consists or is good to reference objects. This is, for example, useful when we want to import data to relational fields. For this, we have to specify how the data will be connected. I can show you this on an example in Pimcore. I've prepared two folders, brands and products, and two classes, brand and product. The classes are really simple, so there is a brand class which has mainly only a name. About this calculated field here will come later. And there is a product class which has SKU and some other text fields. And the most important one for this tutorial is the brand relation. So we have a many-to-one relation from product to brand. A product can belong exactly to one brand. And for this, I've set up imports to import data. Again, we are using our known import file from previous tutorials. And this has a column brand. And there we have all the different brands for the products. So when we look here, we have in the brand import, source data type is CSV, our target class is the brand class, and everything else is pretty much default settings. Our target folder is the brands folder. And we only extract the column brand from the CSV file. And in the attribute mapping, we have only mapped the object name to be brand and the name field to be brand. Now, when we want to import our data, we click the Start Complete Import button and start the import. Here we see that we have 405 distinct brands, so some brands will get assigned to multiple products. And when we refresh the brands folder, we'll see that all those brands got imported. Now let's come to the products import. The products import is basically the same. So it's again a CSV import, but this time target class is product. Same import file, all the other settings are the same. This time our target folder is products. And we extract some other columns from the CSV file, namely product name, PID, which means the product number or the SKU, description, and brand. Now in the attribute mapping, we have the object name is the product name, the SKU is the PID, so the PID, product ID, there's name and description. This is all straightforward. But then there's the relation brand. We have assigned the column brand, but then we have to tell Pimcore how to find the object with this string. Because in our brand column, we only have the string, and Pimcore needs to find the corresponding object. And for this, we will use a data query selector. We also already see it here in the callback function. There you see this data query selector. And I'd like to tell you what this means. The first thing, or data query selector is always separated in terms separated by colons. The first part is always the class name which we want to find an object of. So in this case, we want to find a brand object. And we want to find a brand object which has the name equal to our given value. So params value in this case is our assigned raw data field brand, and we see it here. In this case it's empty. This is because there are some products where the brand is empty, and when we look what our first product is here, then it really has no brand. But we can change this if we select a different one here. For example, Adidas. Now when we select the product from Adidas, we will see that the data query selector is now brand name Adidas. And in the parsed column, we see that it already finds the object /brands/Adidas. And this is the object folder brands and below Adidas. So this object will get found. So let's see if this works. We import the products. This product, for example, has a brand, and this is really one from our objects here above. Let's look at Adidas. Adidas also has one product. It's this one. So now the relation got assigned, and this was our goal. Now I'd like to explain how those data query selectors work. We see here again, it consists for referencing objects of 3 parts: the class name, the filter field, and the filter value. I've prepared a PDF which explains this even better. In this case, it explains it with a product data query selector. So here we have as a class, which we want to find an object of, is product. We want to find a product which has SKU equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. So when we convert this to PHP code, this would mean this code here. So when there are developers watching this video, they might know this. This is the Pimcore class, Pimcore model data object product, and from this there is a static method get by SKU, and we provide the 1, 2, 3, 4 as an argument. And we will get returned a product object which fulfills this query condition. And this returned object can then be assigned to the many-to-one relation. This is exactly what the data query selector does. But it can even do more. When after those first 3 parts there's additional parts, then we try to get data from the found object, or objects can also find multiple objects. In this case, when we add full pass, it will first try to find the object with a product object with SKU 1, 2, 3, 4, and afterwards from this returned object will retrieve the full path. For example, it will return products 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can chain this as long as you want. For example, when there is an image field where an asset file, an image asset is assigned, then you could use product SKU 1, 2, 3, 4 to get the object. From this we will call the getImage method to get the image asset. This will return a PHP object of class Pimcore model asset image, and from this object we access the full path to get the asset image path. Again, converted to PHP. In this case, it's also straightforward, same as before, but this time from the returned object we call get full path, or when in the image case we call get image, and from the result get full path. So here you see that the colons are actually arrows in PHP language. But in some cases you might want to provide arguments to those functions here. And this is done with a hashtag. For example, when you want to fetch the English name from the returned product, then in PHP you would have to call getName and as an argument provide en for the language. With the data query selector, that's also possible, and it's done with a hashtag. So the same as before, this part finds the object. From the returned object, we want to get the name, but we want to get the English name. But this is can also be used for other parameters, like in this case to retrieve a thumbnail from an assigned image. This will find the product. From this product we get the assigned image, and from this we fetch the thumbnail in the shop detail thumbnail definition. So this is the thumbnail definition. A nice thing about data query selectors is that you do not have to care if it actually has an image. So when you would do this in PHP, for example, this line here, you will always have to check, is there actually an image assigned? Because otherwise, when this function returns null, then you cannot call getFullPath on this. The data query selectors catch those, and if there is any error in between, you will get an empty string or null. Depends on so when such an object, such a data query selector for referencing objects does not find anything, it will return null. When you have additional fields afterwards, it returns an empty string. Yes. Then you can use data query selectors for group functions or aggregate functions. In this case, we want to retrieve the name of all the assigned categories of a product. We can do this again with product SKU 1234. This returns one product. From this returned product, we access the categories. This will return an array of category objects. And from each of the category objects, we want to extract the name. So this each here is in PHP code, it would be a for each loop. And from each of the category objects, we retrieve the name, which will result in an array. For example, when this product had two categories, mountain bikes and e-bikes, we would get this result. But it's also possible to retrieve multiple fields in this for each loop. In this case, we can write in the braces multiple fields like ID, and we also want, in this case, it's images. From the returned product, we fetch the images, and from the assigned images, we want to get the asset ID and the thumbnail path for the thumbnail definition shop detail. This will, for example, return a multidimensional array. When this product has two images, the first array item will be an associative array with the keys ID. So this is the asset ID from the first assigned image. And then there is another array key, thumbnail shop detail. This is from the second part. And it contains the path to the requested thumbnail. And for the second image, it's the same, but of course with other data. But especially when you want to send or export data from Pimcore and send this to another system or process this in another system, this array key here looks a bit ugly. And for this reason, data query selectors support aliasing. It works a bit the same as in SQL. You can, after the data query selector, specify as and then the alias, in this case as thumbnail path, and then the data will be the same, but except the array key will now be thumbnail path, and of course this looks much better than before. But you can even do filtering. Filtering, in this case the goal was to extract the names of all published categories. So we had something similar above here. We retrieved the names from all categories, But now we want to filter those categories only for the published category objects. Again, we fetch the product object. From this product object, we fetch all the items, all the assigned categories. Categories is again the many-to-many object relation. And when there are two categories assigned, but only one is published, then this constructor, this filter, will return only this one category. And it works the same as before. We have a filter method, and as arguments, it gets the filter field, which it should use, and the filter value. So in this case, it should filter for the objects to be published. And again, it should then output the name of the remaining of the name of the remaining category objects. So here it's only mountain bikes. Before it was mountain bikes and e-bikes. So this means that the e-bikes category is currently unpublished. And then, especially important for exports, there are some convenience helpers. For example, for select fields, in this case, country is a select field with a label German and value Germany and value DE. In this case, we again retrieve the product, then retrieve the select field's value, and from this select field's value, we want to get the label. In this case, it's easy. We simply add :label, and it will return Germany. So this here at the top is wrong. This should be Germany. Then we can use :value. This will return the option value. In this case, it's DE. And this is the same as when we only specify country without explicitly saying what we want to get from the selected option. As it is the Pimcore default, this will return the ID or the value of the option, not the label. And there's a last convenience helper for select fields. It's translating a certain label. So when you extract the label, country label will return Germany. And when we add a #DE, this will output Deutschland. This will use the shared translation. So of course you have to translate this first. Yes, and there's another convenience helper for URLs. For example, when you want to export asset files, it's often a requirement to extract the URL which the processing system can access the asset. And this we can specify. This we can do by specifying :URL. So again, this will return the product. Image in this case is an image field, and by specifying :URL, it returns the fully qualified URL to this Pimcore asset. It's this one. Now, when it comes to exports, it would be a bit long to always specify that we want to extract data from this class, this field, and this value. Because in exports, you already define a source class, so there is actually no need to define those three parts here in the data query selectors. For this reason, you can simply skip those first three parts and only enter the queries, the parts which shall extract the data. So for example, when you extract full path, it will return products 1, 2, 3, 4. When you have an export with source class product. And the same as above, same can be chained and grouped and aggregated and all this. But you can nevertheless access data from other classes. So when you have an export with source data class product, you can access brand name XYZ, the ID. In this case, of course, it will find a brand object whose name is XYZ and return the ID of the found object. Or the other way around, this will become important later in this tutorial, we can do a reverse search. So when you have an export with source class brand, we can query to find products which have in the relation of fields. So this, in our case, it's a many-to-one relation, but can also be many-to-many relation, doesn't matter. And we want to find products which have the currently processed brand in the field brand. And this might be multiple products, of course. And from those returned products, we want to extract the name. So in this case, when there are two products which reference to the currently processed brand, then this data query selector will return ABC bike, DEF bike. With data query selectors, it's also possible to enable and disable inheritance for single fields. With Pimcore default settings, it's only possible to define inheritance on a class level. You cannot enable or disable it for single fields. With data query selectors, it's possible. So you can, on any point in this chain, you can write without inheritance or with inheritance, and then the following will use inheritance. So in this case, when you have a product class which supports inheritance, there might be product variants which would inherit the SKU from their parent object. And this is of course not wanted, especially not because then there might be multiple variants with the same SKU in an export, and this is not good. In this case, you can disable inheritance for this single field, and then all the other fields like the product name and those can use inheritance, but the SKU may not. Yes, this I've already explained, finding reversely related objects. You could even use this when you specify only the parameter as a data query selector. This would mean that you could create a really versatile API where you can fetch any field from the object. For example, you could call this with this URL, and this will then extract the name field from the returned product. This way you could create an API where you define on the request side what to return. So a bit like GraphQL, but of course it's still a REST API. Yes, and now I'd like to show you how all this knowledge can be applied. I have set up an export for products. Source data type is Pimcore objects. So like a basic export, I've shown before how exports are set up. And here we use our data query selectors to define what to extract. So for scalar fields, it's rather simple. But here in this case, from our brand object which we assigned to the product, so for example this one, we want to extract the name. And so we see it here, there is no classes before. We have selected the source data class here, and so we can directly access the data here. Source data class is product, and from this returned from the currently processed product object we get the brand, and from this returned brand we get the name. In attribute mapping, I've simply selected the JSON template. Let's see what we get out. We look here. Oh, this has no brand. This one has a brand. We see here that brand is now Allure, for example. So this way we can extract data in a simple case. First, I'd like to show you how those data query selectors work under the hood. So in this case, I'd like to show you how they get transpiled to PHP code. Let me have a look. Sorry. In Varcache Blackbit data director, there are the transpiled functions, and if you even want to debug something, this is also a good point, because you could grab for the data query selector and you will find the functions, the classes where it's defined. Let's look inside here and copy this out to make it better readable. Paste it to a PHP file, and then we see what it actually does. It is a function and it receives the object which we found. So again, in our PDF, what the function gets is the object which gets returned by this part of the data query selector, by the querying part. And this object then, for this object, we call an anonymous function, and this now extracts the brand first with a function. This contains all the magic which I have spoken of, and from the returned value it extracts the name of the brand. And then there's some additional logic that you do not get the array key, but you get directly the brand name. And that's it. So there is no magic. It's only converting data query selector language to PHP code. Now, when we look at another export, like the brands, there is what I've said before. We can extract data from other classes. So in this case, source data class is brand. We extract the brand name, but we also like to extract the product SKU and the product's name from all the products which refer to this brand. And as you know, the brand does not know anything about its product. This is only a calculated value field here, but the relation is on the product side. It's this one. We can use to retrieve this data query selector to retrieve all the products which refer to this brand, and from each extract the SKU and the name. Again, as the without callback function, we use default JSON. And let's try this again. And when we open it, we see that we extract the brands. And let's see, this brand, for example, ACM, has 2 products. And this way we can extract the data also from other classes. Let's look again also here on the PHP code, which this data query selector defines. There's this one. Here again, we get the object as an input. And from this object, it's not only one object. This time it's multiple objects. It's an array of objects. And from this, we apply the each function, which returns it as an array. So at first, it's not an array, it's an iterator. The each function converts it to an array. And from each array item, we run through this array map function. We run through this function here and extract from each returned array item. So in this case, it's the products. Extract the SKU and the name. And this is what we return. But you can use data query selectors not only for importing and exporting data, but you can also use it to show data within Pimcore. For this, let's look at our product class again. I've added a field collection prices. Let's make it visible. And let's look at the definition. This field collection consists of 3 fields: valid from, valid to, and price. So one product can have multiple field collection price items for the different validity dates. When we look at an object, let's take this one here, we could add a new item here, and it costs 20 euro in this date range, for example. But we could use another one in the past. There it was 18 euros. And now we can use our data query selectors to show the current price in the grid. So you know that for field collections, it's not possible to simply show this in the grid. So here you see it's not supported. You will not get a result for this. But with data query selectors, you can do it. For example, there is under extractors, there's the operator data query selector. And this allows us to enter a data query selector. So for example, let's first extract the ID here to show you that it works. It also supports auto completion as on your normal data port settings, and apply. Then we will see it returns the data. Now let's come back to the prices. I've prepared this, and here we see, let's look at the definition of this. Here we have the data query selector, which extracts from the field collection prices the currently valid price. So from the field collection prices, we want to filter for the one field collection item which is currently valid. So we filter that valid from is lower or equal to now, and from the returned values we filter for the ones where valid to is bigger than now. From the returned items, this is still an array. In the optimal case, it's an array with one item. Otherwise, we either do not have a price or we have a data error when there are multiple prices valid for the current date. From the returned array of field collection items, we get the first one. This is this part here. And from this field collection item, we want to extract the price. And then we convert it to a string to get a nicely formatted value. So let's see here, we have 20 euros. And for this object, is not the one. It is the one. This is exactly what's currently valid. So today is the 13th of June, and this is valid. So when we change it here, then we will also see it in the. We will also see it in the grid, and when we when it's not valid anymore, so for example this way, then we will get an empty string. See it here, and when another item, for example, is now valid. Sorry, that's the wrong month. For example, this way, then the other field collection item is used. So this way you can extract data even from field collections, from other objects, and show it here in the grid. What currently is not possible, sadly, is to filter this data here with the grid filter options. But we are working on this. Of course, this would be a cool feature. But why is this so cool that we can show data from field collections here with data query selectors? Let's try to build this with the built-in operators which Pimcore brings out of the box. So there already is a field collection getter operator, and we could use this. But here begins the problems. For this year, it's relatively easy, but there is no autocomplete feature. In this case, to extract the valid from date, we have to define in which the name of the field collection container inside our class. Then we can define which item we want to select, and then from this field collection item, which field we want to get. But a logic, as we did here in the data query selector, with this filtering and extracting, especially with the filtering, this is not possible with the operators, and it is much more complex. For example, here it's 3 fields, or for example, look at the object field getter. Here's attribute and forward attribute. To me, even with the documentation, it's not obvious which things I have to enter in which field. So with the data query selector, you get the autocomplete features. You get, for example, yes, you get here the brand name, and then you have the brand name. So this is really, really fast. Sorry, I forgot. Finished. And there we have the brand name. So it's really much easier to get data into the grid from complex fields like relations or field collections than it is with the built-in grid operators. Another thing you can do where you can use data query selectors is to show data within the object. So now let's come to this calculated value field here. Let's make it visible. This is not a normal calculated value field, but it's a calculated value field which supports a data query selector. But it does not only support a data query selector, but it supports twig syntax, which also supports which got added the feature to understand data query selectors. So the logic, the function which defines what to display, you can enter here directly on the field level. In this case, the goal is to show a list of products which are assigned to the brand object, and this is done with twig syntax. This is HTML here, and then we have a for loop, and here the data query selectors come into play. This is again the same data query selector or a similar data query selector as we used before. We search for product objects where the brand is equal to the currently opened object, and from those found objects we extract the ID and the name. And inside the loop we use this ID to output a link that we can directly open the product, and we display the product name. Now let's look how this looks like. Oh, I haven't saved yet, sorry. It was still invisible. Now it's visible. We see it here. We have the list, and when we look to the dependencies, this is exactly those 2 objects which refer to this brand. Now when we click it, we can directly open it. So this way it's also possible to use data query selectors in calculated value fields. Yes, that's it for today. To summarize, I'd like to name the advantages of data query selectors. Data query selectors provide a unified language for all data processing aspects in Pimcore. You can use them for referencing data in imports, or referencing objects in imports, or also referencing assets. You can use it to extract data for exports. You can use it for grid operators, as I've shown, or you can use it inside one object for calculated value fields to retrieve data from other objects or from the object itself. There's no PHP or Pimcore database knowledge necessary. Of course, it is a new language which you have to learn, so this PHP aspect is not that important, or it's not a big advantage. But the Pimcore database knowledge you do not have to have, because you already designed your data object class with all the fields, and this is all you need to know for the data query selectors, because each level in the data objects, in the data object classes, is one level in the data query selector classes. And even if you are not very experienced with data query selectors yet, then there is the autocomplete support. So wherever possible, you get suggestions to what you would want to do. They are fast to be processed because they are compiled into PHP code, and so they can later be reused. And of course, they are also fast concerning development time, because you do not have to write any PHP code into PHP files, but you do everything in the Pimcore backend. And of course, it's much shorter than if you write the PHP code. I've mentioned the checks for if the relations are actually populated. Otherwise, you couldn't access any field from the related object. And with data query selectors, you do not have to care about this. You simply write what you want to get, and if there is an error in between, then you get an empty string. But you always have the option to debug this. So this makes it much more elegant compared to grid operators, because there often you simply get an empty string. I will tell more about debugging in one of our next videos. With data query selectors, it is easier to debug things, even without changing the underlying PHP files. Data query selectors are error tolerant. This means, for example, when you have an advanced many-to-many relation, in plain PHP, you would have to, when you want to fetch data from the objects which are assigned, then you would always have to call getObject, and then you could call the actual fields. So getObject, getName, for example, because advanced many-to-many relations return an object metadata object, and of course this is not obvious to when you're not experienced with Pimcore. So with data query selectors, you do not have to care. You simply have a relation, and you tell it that you want a certain field to get, or that you want to get a certain field's value, and then it will retrieve this one. And it supports convenience shortcuts for common use cases, as I've shown, the select option labels or the exporting URLs from assets. With plain PHP code, this would be much more code to write than with data query selectors. Yes, I hope I could convince you that data query selectors are very powerful and will help you develop a greater experience with Pimcore in the backend and even in imports and exports.
Thank you so much for watching. At Blackbit, we believe that shared knowledge is the key to new innovative thoughts. That's why we share our fair share of knowledge with you through these videos. We appreciate your feedback, so feel free to leave us a comment. And if you got any questions about this or other data director features, feel free to contact us via help@blackbit.de. Also, make sure to check out our other data director tutorials. Maybe some of your questions are already covered by them. And by subscribing to our channel, you will be always up to date. Bye bye, see you soon.